a video on bread. So I normally make sourdough, but I found a packet of yeast in the cupboard, and I was kind of thinking, could we use dried packet yeast and kind of treat it like sourdough? So kind of use the it's obviously going to rise a lot quicker than sourdough does, but can we use the recipe that I use for sourdough, which is a lot wetter than a normal bread mixture, and can we kind of use dried yeast? It won't taste the same, but I'm going to shape it and we'll put it in some proving baskets and we'll see what happens, just out of curiosity. So I've forgotten what the recipe is. I've already added, I put some of the yeast in some of the water, and I've added the some of the water into flour already. What was it? It was 550 grams worth of flour, and then what was it? It was two batches of water, and it was 250 grams and 125 grams. So we'll add those together in the description, and then a bit of salt. And then what we always do we always activate a starter with sourdough, and then we add the flour to the water, and well, I always add the starter at that stage, and then leave it for an hour, and then the water has enough time to get into all the mix into all the flour, so it completely saturates all the flour, and then that way what happens is you can actually add more liquid and get away with it with a higher hydration rate with a sourdough. You don't tend to do that with a normal bread dough. You tend to mix it and then knead it straight away. But I'm going to have a go because I'm curious. So roughly mixed in. It doesn't feel too wet actually. It doesn't feel too wet. So roughly mixed in. I need that bowl for something else actually. So clean that as much as possible. And then another bowl. Pulling things out of the cupboard with wires and all things like that. Put it in that. Things falling out of the cupboard. So we'll put that in there, we'll cover it, we'll leave it for an hour, and then we're going to knead it. Do you need to see me kneading? No. And then I'll knead it for an hour. I'll knead it for 10 minutes, and then we'll prove it, and then we'll shape it, and then we'll bake it. So, I have kneaded, and it has risen. So there we go. After thinking about it, I could have added some of my sourdough starter to it, and then that kind of would have given it a sour kind of flavour. That's kind of quite interesting, isn't it? There's another video to be made. So yeah, what I'll do is I will my sourdough starter. I don't bake lots of bread, and you end up, because you have to feed your starter every 5 days, you end up with more starter than you actually need. So you end up throwing it away, which is a little bit of a disappointment. But it's kind of got loads of flavour in it. It takes a long time to rise though, so it's like a long kind of process. Whereas you kind of think, well, if we could just take the sourdough starter when I've got too much of it, and instead of throwing it away, I could put it into the dough. That would impart flavour into the dough, and then use some yeast. So that'd be kind of quite interesting, wouldn't it? That should kind of quite work. So we'll knock this back. We'll shape it. We'll put it in a proving basket. We'll see if it turns out. So I kind of, yeah. So even though that'll be another video, it'll probably be the next video after I've done this one, because I've gotten to the stage where I've got too much starter and I need to do something with it. We still need to know that we can, doing the same kind of things that we do to a sourdough, that we can do to normal bread, to kind of like form it, put it in a proving basket, and all that kind of stuff. It kind of works anyway. So it's nice warm, and so we'll just knock it back just a little bit. It's not just as wet as a sourdough, but I kind of, for the flour that I use, I tend to add different amount of water. So this is just cheap supermarket bread flour. It's about 55p, maybe 60p now, for 1.5 kilos. The price is going up. All kinds of scaremongering going on. but we'll kind of see. So I tend to use less water in the cheaper supermarket, in the cheaper bread flours, because there's not just quite as much gluten in them as opposed to like a really heavily glutened bread flour. So if you've never formed dough before, yeah, so dough can be sticky, and you just kind of have to practice with it to get it used to touching it and not letting it stick to your hands. And it's I don't know how to describe it, but you just don't let the dough get stuck to your hands. You kind of learn how to control it, and it's you're in charge of the dough's not in charge of you. That's the type of attitude that you kind of have to take with it. So what we're doing is we are tightening the dough on the top and pushing underneath. So like all the dough is getting pushed into that kind of area there. See, it won't stick to my hand, but I didn't let it. So we are pushing down like that, and then that's going to form the spring in the dough. So when we slice it, we'll get that nice open out, hopefully. So that should be okay. It's not my mixing board, my kneading board isn't particularly very smooth, but I'm not particularly very bothered. I'm not a professional when it comes to baking bread. So that'll do. We've created enough tension in the dough, and then it goes into the proving basket, and then we'll just let it, we'll give it half an hour rise, and then we'll kind of see, oh, it needs a bit of flour on top. In the proving basket, you can just use cheap plain flour. It doesn't have to be expensive bread flour. Just a bit on there, just to stop it from sticking to sticking to my shower cap. It's alright, I sneezed into the sink. So, just there, like that. And we'll give it half an hour, and then we'll bake it. So, the bread's risen, and it's stuck to the... Just carefully pull it away. Hopefully it'll come out the proving basket. So, the cast iron pot is hot. Maybe it's proved a little bit too much of that. But not to worry. We'll see how we go. Cast iron pot's hot. Will it go into the oven? Will it go fall into that? Yes. So, slice. Quite a deep one. And then let it be ready. Spray with water on the side that's away from the slice, and then it doesn't. Otherwise, what happens is the water stops the slice from opening out. So we'll see if that. Oh, that goes. Oh, half an hour. Half an hour lid on. We'll have a look after 20 minutes. But I kind of think. I think half an hour will be about right. Just a bit about right down, and then we'll see. Although I've already decided that I need to do another video on this, haven't I? You know, which is always the case. You know, I do one video, and then I think about other things that I need to do. It never answers all the questions, but there we go. So, half an hour. We'll see what it's like. Have a look. Oven off. Oh, there we go. Nice split on it. Oh, no, it's still on. So, pull this out. Yeah, it's got a nice split on that. I think I might need to up the amount of dough that I'm putting in my proving baskets. Might need to do like more. It's got a nice hollow sound to it. So we'll let that cool, we'll cut into it, and then we'll kind of see, and we'll have a bit of review. It's kind of, you can hear it. It's got a nice crust on it. But so you spray the water on that side. If you spray it on this side, it wants to, it doesn't want to split open because it kind of, the water kind of makes the dough kind of stick back to itself, so it doesn't kind of split open. So you need to spray it on that side, but it's got a nice crust. So we'll kind of see how it tastes. It won't taste as nice as sourdough because it hasn't got the sourdough starter in it. But the next video, we'll have a see about if we can fix that problem and kind of take the long period of work out of the dough. Right, it has cooled enough. Anyway, so let's do it in the middle. I don't think, before I cut into it, I don't think it will have the air pockets like a sourdough does. Although it might do. I think sourdoughs get those big air pockets because of the hydration of the dough. So it's got a lot more water in, and also when making proper sourdough, you get the big air holes in it. It's folded as well, so you fold the dough. I've never kind of seen the point of that, because when I'm making bread, I kind of want to be able to put butter and jam on it. You know what I mean? Or have it in a sandwich. Not in a sandwich, but have it as a sandwich. And those, you know, how can you get butter or jam onto something that's got great big holes in it? But anyway. And I also kind of think as well, because of the hydration, it's like when you make Yorkshire puddings or like choux buns, eclairs, that type of thing. That it's the moisture in it that kind of makes everything expand and creates steam on the inside and kind of pushes everything up. So it's more like a batter than an actual dough. It's kind of like halfway in between. But anyway, I don't know enough about it, and I don't know anyone who I could ask about it, or anyone who I could ask would actually know, because I think a lot of people just kind of do things and follow a recipe and they don't actually understand why they do things. So I'm waffling. Let's cut into it. Still a bit warm. There we go, you see? Looks like a proper loaf. Got some air pockets and things, but those are fine. Yeah, so it's obviously down to the folding and the long fermentation why we get those big holes in a sourdough, or more holy anyway. But how's it taste? I don't want to cut it there. I don't want to cut it there. Yeah, that's a useful tip. So when you get a loaf like that, unless you've got a really sharp knife, it's difficult to cut a length that way. So cut it in half and then go down this way like that, and you're using the structure of the crust to keep it solid. So like, you couldn't do it that way. I suppose you could, but it'd be uneven. But that's a flat surface, and then you can get some nice slices like that. How does it taste? Nice, it looks nice and chewy. Yeah, it just hasn't got the depth of flavour of sourdough. It's nice and I'm happy, you know. But it goes to show, you can take these techniques. I can take my techniques that I use with a sourdough and make a loaf of bread with normal fast-acting bread yeast and get that nice, lovely split and get a nice, decent loaf out of that. So by learning something more difficult like sourdough, I've actually taught myself how to make a decent, like, rustic loaf as well. There we go. Yeah, it's that. It's alright, but there's no kind of like that depth of flavour that you get with the fermentation. So, which kind of leads me to think that we really should have a go. Same process again, but we will use some of my sourdough starter for actual flavour. And what they do in France, one of my friends told me once, is what they do is they save a portion, a certain amount of the previous day's dough, and then use that in the next day's dough. So it's kind of got more flavour to it. So we're kind of doing that because my sourdough starter will have lots of flavour to it. So we'll do that and we'll see how it turns out. But I think that would be kind of quite interesting, and it might bypass that whole process of the kind of faffing around, and it might be a bit of a mock sourdough. It won't be as good as making proper sourdough, but it'd be a quicker way of doing it, which is kind of quite interesting. But anyway, it works. It's a nice loaf. I'm happy with that. There we go.